Awayithandi awayifuni
Numsale, yo Numsale,
ayiwafuna amaphutho
Numsale,
asiwafuna amakhapeta
Numsale,
lesohlale
Numsale, yo Numsale.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Workers' Power. And of course, the host with the mostest, Ms. Parks, is back. So we're going to bring you another episode focusing on a Numsa official. This time, it's Comrade Mduduzi Nkosi, who happens to be the sector coordinator for the bus passenger sector, for the petrochemical sector, and also for the motor sector. But in this interview, we'll be focusing on the bus passenger sector and the possibilities of a looming national strike. So stay tuned for more. Good day, everybody, and we are back for another exciting episode of Workers' Power with Parks. Thank you so much for joining us. And of course, today we are bringing you another interview with one of our officials from Numsa, Comrade Mduduzi Nkosi, who happens to be the sector coordinator in the bus passenger sector. Welcome, Comrade, to Workers' Power.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So, just briefly, Comrade Mdu, if you can tell us, because today's topic is going to focus on the bus passenger sector. There's a lot going on. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do particularly with regards to the sector that we're about to talk about.
Thank you very much, Comrade Parks. I think it will be important that we start that traditionally when Numsa was not in the buses, but in 2013, that Special National Congress, there was a resolution that we are opening up the scope. Bus passenger was one of the first actually to join Numsa. And I'm happy to say that where we are at now, Numsa is the majority union in the bus passenger.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, Mduduzi Nkosi, I'm happy to be the sector coordinator in the bus passenger sector. Yeah.
So we are currently negotiating.
Yes.
And in fact, as we conduct this interview, there's already been a round of negotiations with employers in the bus passenger sector. Could you just talk to us about that process, about the fact that we've started negotiations? What are our demands as a union?
Okay. Thanks, Comrade Parks. I think maybe it will be very important also to start here. The bus passenger, we have always been negotiating. I think about 3 years from now, we have been, like I said, being the leading union. The biggest challenge in the bus sector, I will talk about the demands now. The biggest challenge in the bus sector is that always when you go to negotiations, these employers, what they do, they come up with demands. So before we even talk about issues of workers, we will have to overcome obstacles that are actually being put on the process by the employers themselves. They come up with demands and it's rather odd. But I'm not going to spend much time on that. I think it's their strategy. But I don't think it's helpful at all.
Yeah.
Our core demands in the bus passenger sector. Obviously, the increases will be one of the core demands. We have demanded 15%. Our compromises had been to 10%. That's where we're stuck. The issue about the double driver allowance, I mean, there is something about the double driver Comrade Parks that when you look at this, it's very, very unfair. Let's
actually talk about that before we go into the other demands, just to explain to those people who don't know. When you're talking about the double driver, you're talking about the second driver in a situation where there's a long distance trip, right?
Indeed.
So you'll have the main driver who's taking the people down to the coast or wherever they're going, and then the second driver is the one who would be returning, right?
Actually.
So what are the conditions of those drivers? I mean, I know we've actually had many campaigns around them.
It's just an injustice, really, if we look at that, because what then happens here is that there will be two drivers. Like you move from here to PE, from here to Cape Town. There are two drivers in that bus. If I am a driver, I happen to be having my foot on the pedal, and you are the other driver. At that point, when you are not driving, you are regarded as off. You are not getting any remuneration.
You're off.
All. You are actually like off. You are actually
So
like
I'm
a
sitting
whore.
on the bus.
Yes.
I've left my home. I've left my kids. I've left my favorite savannah in my fridge.
You can't do anything.
And I'm on a bus traveling as part of work, and the employer says I'm off.
Yeah.
That is exploitation.
That's very much unfair. That's how then the issue of the allowance for the second driver came about. But the allowance is a pittance. If you look at an average, these drivers will make 15 to 18 trips per month,
Sure.
and an allowance of around 400 rand. When you look at really, you drill down and says, on average, they are actually getting something like 25 rand per trip. You go from here to PE, and when you come back, yeah, that's what they get.
When
Because
you're
400
saying the
rand
allowance is 400, are you saying like 400 rand for the whole month?
yes.
For the whole month, the allowance is 400 rand,
Yes.
and yet you're making 18 trips.
Yes.
So you're not actually being paid at all. This is slavery.
It's like nothing. So our demand really is that all these workers, when they are in that particular bus, because I mean, this is a consequence of the business model of the employer. It's not for our choosing. It's not like workers will say, no, look, I want to be the second driver. No, it's the employers that comes up with this concept that says, look, it's a consequence of them doing their business. So we will want all workers, because of that inconvenience, they are not going to, I mean, you will have to keep yourself fit for if I take this bus and then you are going to take it, you are going to take over from Bloemfontein, you must keep yourself fit. You are not going to do anything that is going to, for example, they can't have, you talked about savannah, you can't have one sip. You will have to keep yourself ready for that.
And alert. You're
Yes,
working.
You are working, actually. I mean, yeah, so that's where we are at. We are looking at those drivers being paid for time spent on the bus in totality.
That has always been our demand, that they should actually be paid.
Yes.
And it should never been an allowance.
Because the bottom line is that they are at work.
They're at work.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise they would be sitting at home sipping their favorite drink.
Do whatever they want to do.
Yes, exactly. So if you're going to say that they must travel down, that's work.
Yeah.
So we've covered the first two demands. We've spoken about the fact that we want a wage increase of 10% across the board. You've said that there's this issue of the allowance, which we want to increase from 400 rand to
all drivers must be paid for time spent on the bus.
All drivers must be paid for the time spent. And then the other core demand is the demand around primary healthcare. Now, this has been a burning issue where workers have been saying there is no medical aid of any kind for workers in the sector. Talk to us about why this in particular has been a burning issue for workers.
It's very important. If you look at bus passenger, it's mostly, I mean, drivers. We're talking about mostly drivers, even if our members, I think, is something like 92% drivers. And then there is support staff. These are migrating workers. They are migrating workers. They are going to move from point A to point B as a consequence of them being at work and all those things. But they do not have that medical cover. By the way, even before COVID, this is, like you have said, there's a long-standing demand. Before COVID, we had actually raised this issue. Unfortunately, COVID then had its own disruptions and all those things. Now it's back again. So where we are at, and we had processed this demand and went through task teams for over the years.
There was even a feasibility study, right?
That was done, yes.
What did the feasibility study find?
I mean, it found that we can actually factor in this. It can be, it's affordable for these employers.
It's affordable.
Indeed.
And yet the employers don't want to give it to workers. They actually
kicked it out.
Why? On what basis?
Now, you see, there is this thing, comrade Parks, that employers come up with. They say, look, we have medical aid offering. The problem with that, comrade Parks, is that they always come up with this 50-50 payment split. And when you look at the medical aid, and I mean, private medical aid is very, very expensive. Workers can't afford to pay their 50%. So we came up with an affordable healthcare cover that can actually see workers affording to pay their share contribution thereof. then the issue is that just if you look at, we told these employers the last time, if you look at the differences that we have with them, it's more ideological. I mean, these employers, I think they are just stuck into the concept that says we are not going to give workers this. It's not like about affordability, or they can't see the benefit of a healthy employee at work and all those things. No, it's just that I think ideologically they just don't want to offer that, or I'm not sure whether they're just having this thing that says if we do that, maybe we're going to promote unions. It's just ultimate betrayal, as it were.
I think also if you look at the sector, and maybe we can discuss this more, this is a sector that traditionally has always very much exploited workers, because historically the workers have always been black. So the pay, the conditions have always been terrible. The pay has always been low. And I think just the idea that you could offer workers decent medical aid is really for, as you say, it's something that these employers cannot even imagine, because they're so used to exploiting workers. I mean, for crying out loud, you've got a second driver who doesn't even get paid for his work. So their business model is slavery.
Now, comrade Parks, the tragedy about this sector is that if you look at the issue of progression, I mean, if you're a driver, you have ended there. There is absolutely no transformation in the industry. You are going to be a driver for the rest of your life, and then
you will retire.
I mean, if you are going to be promoted to what? I mean, because you find that bus companies have their own little structure there at the top, and then there are drivers, then there is a workshop. And actually, if you're a driver, you have reached the ceiling. There's nowhere to go. So for us as a union, it's very important that we actually derive more value for workers, even if we know that they are not going to progress, but they must get something. We at work, there's something that the unions will have introduced that is new, that was never there. So that's where this issue about primary healthcare comes in. But the exploitation part, comrade Fox, we touched on that. I think it is very important. If you look at the history in this industry, it's sad. I mean, there will be some alterations that were done before Numsa came into the space. For example, the night shift, they are not like in line with the Basic Condition of Employment Act. Their night shifts hours only start at 8, it ends at 3 o'clock in the morning. It was deliberate because these employers didn't want to actually pay night shift hours. You know why? Because, for example, the commuter buses like your Padcos, like your Golden Arrows and Bomcibelo, like all of those, workers will start around there, 3 o'clock, 3:30, 4 o'clock. So it was deliberately set up to say, we don't want to pay you night shift hours, even if we know that you are working night shift hours.
Sure.
And then by 8 o'clock in the evening, obviously you will be now finishing your shift. Yeah. So we're not going to pay you. So it's a deliberate act. So those are the things that actually Numsa wants to dismantle. Historical issues were not there, but we will want to dismantle those. But
also, I mean, these companies, I mean, whatever they want to say, these buses are always full because the majority of the African working class uses public transport. Yeah, sure. They rely on these buses. So profits are
not to even mention, they are actually being subsidized.
Yes, I was about to say they're heavily subsidized
by us. Us, actually.
We're paying for them. And then
a kilometer. I mean, do you know that bus, even if, I mean, you talked about the negotiations where we are at, we have actually reached a deadlock. But Parks, conciliation is on the 4th of March. If we can't find each other, likelihood is that we are going to be going on strike. But do you know that even if workers were going to stop buses, and then they will be on strike, but because these bosses have this contract with our government, actually they will be getting the subsidies even if we are not strike.
They make their money anyway.
They make money anyway.
So there's no risk to them.
No.
And I mean, and let's talk about that, because now we're headed, we've deadlocked now with these slave owners. We won't call them bus company owners. They are slave owners because they behave like slave owners, Bill. And it's likely that we're headed for a strike. Now,
very likely.
Now, we have gone on strike during the Easter weekend. Is it possible that we're going to do that again this
We're
week?
going there. We're going there.
The
There is a
biggest
likelihood.
weekend of the year, comrade.
There's likelihood really that we'll be there.
Sure.
But even that, Comrade Parks, I think we have been addressing our members all over the country. I think this time around, particularly on the core demands, they are very resolute. So Easter, no Easter, if we don't get what we want, likelihood is that we are going to very much be confronting the employers head on.
And I think, I mean, we always get heavily criticized when workers go on strike. But I think people forget that if, as you put it, very clearly, these companies wouldn't exist. They wouldn't be able to make any money if you didn't have the drivers driving the buses, if you didn't have the workers in the workshop repairing the buses and maintaining the buses. They are actually the creators of this wealth. So why should they be denied basic things like medical aid, like night shift allowance, like actually just being paid for the work that you're doing?
Goes down to one simple thing, Comrade Parks, greediness. I mean, these employers are going to want to maximize profit. I mean, if they get any opportunity to give them space, they are going to maximize and utilize the space to maximize their profit. For example, there is one issue that is now coming in. If you look at the main collective agreement for the buses, it doesn't have like a job description for a double coach driver. Okay. Now, many companies are actually securing those buses. And we are saying, look, this work is actually double the work, because a single coach, I will be driving a single coach is about 70.
What's a single coach and a double coach?
What they call train buses. You see those?
Oh, those long ones.
Yes. Oh. Now, the inputs are not the same, but there is a single driver there on that long coach. Huh? And that a driver is going to be faring probably double the number of people, and it's not in the main collective agreement. And we say to the employers, no, we must grade this job so that when it is graded, it is actually going to be consummate to the what you call the inputs by this driver. So the pay is going to be obviously going to be going up. No, they're saying no to that. So it's one of also our core demand. So I'm going to this point that says, if you open up a little space for employers to exploit, they are going to exploit maximum.
That's it. Yeah. That's it. And on a final note, I mean, how can you say, because as Numsa has arrived in the space, we're quite new in the space, yes, but we've actually made some impact. Could you just take us through some of the gains that we've made by being present in the bus passenger sector, and what have we secured?
I mean, since we came, we have not signed actually any increases that is below inflation. We have always signed above inflation, increases. This double driver allowance, though it low as it is, actually came up with that strike that was picked up by Numsa. Because when we came, it was already there, this issue about double driver, but they got nothing.
There was no allowance.
Yes, yeah. But then the allowance, pittance as it is, was introduced as a result of Numsa actually fighting. Now we are fighting one medical aid, a medical cover. So those are going to be big issues that are coming with the ticket of Numsa. One, to dismantle the previous structure, like we are saying, the issue of the night shift in terms of the BCAs for us, non-negotiable. So those are the things really that we have picked up as Numsa. Yes.
Great. Thank you so much, Comrade Mdu, for your time. We really appreciate it. And you heard it from the mouth of Comrade Mdu. We are not backing down. We are going for it all, right? Amandla. Thank you so much for that, Comrade Mdu. And of course, folks, thank you again for joining us for another episode of Workers' Power. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to click like. And of course, join us again next time as we unpack all of the burning issues affecting the working class. Viva Numsa, viva!
Viva!
Remember to follow Numsa Media on YouTube. Like, subscribe, and share to as many people as you know.